Well, I'm delighted to be doing my 109th LinkedIn Live broadcast. I'm in our WeWork offices in Edinburgh, and I'm with Aileen Boyle. And I'll ask Aileen to introduce herself in just a moment. But the title of today's broadcast is New Realities Need Bold New Strategies. What are the priorities for the C-suite, especially in these very challenging times that we're all living and working in at the moment? So, Aileen, without any further ado, tell us a bit about yourself and your career to date.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. So I've spent most of my working life in and around entrepreneurs, tech innovators, leading and advising on business change, as well as creating strategic initiatives. But actually, not many people know that, but my very first job was as an accounts instructor. And I did that abroad. I did that for 2 years at a polytechnic. And then I came back to the UK and I did 1 year in secondary schools before moving into tech in the mid-90s, like most people did. I then found myself putting in the 999 call login system for the ambulance service. Put that into Cowcaddens, Paisley and Motherwell. Fantastic people. And actually the first time I could see how tech was really transformational for an organisation. I then moved to Lloyd's when they were merging with UDT, again, transformation, and then moved to a company called Pilgrim, which actually put in practice management systems into law firms. So I know quite a few of the law firms around Edinburgh as well as south of the border just from doing that. And again, the transformation in that was quite amazing. I started my first business in 2003. It was an event management company, actually, and I ran it as a consultancy, which at that time wasn't the done thing. I also ran it as a sort of plug-in service for marketing departments, and again, that was different to what they were used to, but it meant everybody could get further and achieve more in a short amount of time. In amongst there, I took a career break to have my kids, but I couldn't leave well alone, so got involved in local groups, managed to secure some money for a playgroup. And then when I returned to paid employment, I actually went to work for a company called Escrivo. It was a web development company. And Cameron, the MD, actually looked after my company website when I had my own business. So I absolutely loved it there. And I was employee number 5. And within 3 years, with a lot of hard work and setting up strategic partnerships, we managed to triple our turnover, and there was 12 of us. So that was fantastic. And then building on those skills, I then moved to Edinburgh Chamber of Commerce and helped roll out the Circular Edinburgh programme. And then board advisor, and I've recently just been mentor to a lot of businesses at Strathclyde Business School. So yeah, and the thing that brings it all together is that having a knack for seeing between the lines and just helping people move forward and get that commercial value.
Right, so you've got a really varied and interesting, career journey, and particularly as we move on to in just a moment, we're going to talk about Fortro as well. I think, just listening to all of that, Aileen, and I think I've known you since the Escrivo days. That's where right. I first came across you. And just along the street here in George Street at the Edinburgh Chamber of Commerce, where we were doing a session on bid writing. But just listening to your career, I think while it's possible to go into consultancy at a young age, and I would certainly not knock anybody that's doing that, but however, when you move into consultancy a little bit further on in your career, where you've got experience to draw on, I think it definitely increases your value. Well, I would say that, wouldn't I? I started the bid age 47. Sometimes I wondered why I waited so long, but then I also think that there was benefits to having had quite a lot of experience.
I agree. I was in my late 40s as well. And I think, so it used to be you had to be in your late 50s before people would take you seriously. But I'd really built up a lot of experience around strategy, capacity build and revenue optimization and commercializing. So that then, so it was a kind of, it was a no-brainer in looking to what would I do after Edinburgh Chamber. There was a gap there. Organisations have really struggled to bridge that gap between strategy formulation and day-to-day implementation. So there was a real need for that fractional project by project approach to supporting leadership teams, board level teams, particularly at the smaller end where there's maybe 4 to 20 people. So that's why I set up
Good.
But I set up in January 2020, so that was quite an interesting time.
Absolutely. But you know what, you're still going. So maybe just tell us a little bit more about Fortro and how it's gone since then, you know, pandemic and navigating your way through it.
Sure. So as I say, started in January 2020, had my first client in the March and did my very first strategy session using Microsoft Teams that I'd never seen before with a team of people that I'd never really seen it before. And I think I was ahead of the curve for about 5 minutes and then everybody else caught up. But that first year was very much about supporting companies as they, how can I put it, transitioned through the economic climate. A lot of people thought, oh my God, I don't have a business anymore. But actually, when we sat down and we picked their business apart, we were actually able to see they did. And many of them took an opportunity to change what they wanted to do. And they actually came out, and I worked for 3 or 4 companies that came out stronger, more resilient, and actually had a much more robust business, and have gone on to be much more successful than they were before. That was the first year. The second year was really building on that. I did some presentations for Entrepreneurial Scotland, etc. And again, still working. And then this year has been the time that I've spent with Strathclyde Business School and actually putting together programs for the next challenges that are going forward. As you say, still here, still looking, still watching, still making sure I've got enough flex in my own business that I'm able to adjust for what it is that my clients need. And I became a Women's Enterprise Scotland ambassador. So that was really, really great.
Brilliant. And you've had to pivot as well. the famous word from the pandemic. And well done. Now, Aileen, CEOs have known for a long time that they must embrace change and uncertainty. In what areas of the CEO role, for example, are you seeing the kind of biggest changes?
So there's 3 or 4 there. What I'm seeing, our CEOs are really increasingly concerned about further supply chain upheaval. There's, I'm creating plans that are much shorter with them. We're looking at 6 months rather than maybe 12 to 18 to 24 months. There's a real focus on giving your clients another option. So my mantra is really create, don't compete. The other thing is the sustainability, climate change. So I'm also working with companies to introduce that sort of conscious business ideology and really get it indoctrinated and integrated into their operations. They're also really, really concerned with the big resignation, the great resignation as it's called, the skill shortage everywhere. And a lot of people are not engaged in the same way as they were before. So, how are they going to deal with that? Because typically the CEO is the founder and they're asking people to buy into their dreams. So how do they continue to go on? So in summary, supply chains, climate change, staff changes, and of course, commercial changes.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen all of that. I was particularly, the great resignation. I think that is, people got used to just a different way of living and working during the pandemic. And once that genie's out of the bottle, it isn't so easy just to shove it back in, And I think, people that were maybe doing a commute to an office 5 days a week, once they've worked from home successfully for 18 months, and kind of worked their life around it and maybe even got a pet or, had more children or whatever, it isn't so straightforward to just say, right, well, now you must come back to the office every day, 5 days a week. People are looking for different things in life now, I think.
They are. And I'm on the other side of that. I've always worked at home in this company, and I'm actually now looking to see if I can come in 1 day a week, so everybody would like something different for sure.
Yeah. So, what do you think sort of really matters most to businesses at the moment?
So I would say there's a real need for speed and flex. The fallout of the pandemic showed that those who couldn't shift quickly really struggled, and actually many of them didn't make it for reasons beyond their control, but also because they weren't able to change quickly. So that need for speed and being able to change your offering and focus is still dominating. And actually it's rearing its head again as we're going into what could be perceived as recession. So I think that goes to the heart of designing your business, that speed and flex.
Yeah, great. Okay, but the CEO might be able to, be quite agile. But how does she or he sort of bring their board and their senior management with them? How does it translate to these levels?
Yeah, so boards are changing, and boards need to be able to look at their own skill set now. Actually, they can't just be technically proficient in their areas. They have to be what I call people proficient, and they have to have a real self-awareness now. Boards, they're having to change tactics. They can't be just about the money anymore. Customers are looking for slightly more conscious awareness, etc. And those traditional elements of those leadership style actually can be blocks to progression. So it's possibly worth doing a board gap analysis. I would advise that to anybody, just to make sure they've got it all covered. There's real pressure on managements investing in the right technologies to make sure that they can stay up to date. And as I said before, there's a real a need to continue investing in employees. I mean, studies have shown that about 83% of staff are unengaged at work. That's huge. And that can cost a company about $5,500 a year by the time they cover people being off sick or going off long-term sick or setting up work in a different way. So it's really starting. It's coming from the top down now, the pressures. It's not just the individual team members.
Yeah. Engagement is so important, and that idea of trying to keep everybody on the journey with you, rowing in the same direction. If you're on a boat, engaged, because the ones that are not engaged, act a bit like almost barnacles on the boat, just weighing it down a bit. And the people who may be engaged but not getting perhaps listened to, they end up becoming flight risks as well. So at every level, you've got to have everybody engaged.
Yeah, and it is about if you're quite a dominant personality, make sure you have somebody that can maybe help smooth the path. So it's not about ignoring your skill set. It's maybe just having somebody else that complements it, rather than it just being, this is my way and we're doing it like this, or if you're somebody that's all ideas but no tactics, then have somebody else come in and help with that. So boards really need to have a look at that now, rather than just, have we got audit, have we got strategy, have we got...
Yeah, even the people behind these disciplines are probably even more important than having the actual disciplines.
For sure.
But you need to have them covered as well. So if you were to narrow things down, Aileen, to three main things that a C-suite business leader should have, what would you say?
So I think first and foremost, identify and study the risks that are really going to impact your operations and mitigate them, invest in them, which maybe goes against the grain just now. But it's about keeping the money flowing as well. If we can keep the money flowing, we'll all be better off, so maybe do get an external perspective, because it will help you prioritize what's important. Make sure your business is set up with a kind of flexible business architecture. I keep talking about flex, and that way, if you do need to change focus, you can do it, because it's a bit like Lego, you've got all the blocks, but you can quickly take them down and reassemble them. And finally, match your business strategy to there's this word again, flexible budget. If there's no flex in your budget, then you actually can't flex your business, because you're constrained by your attitudes to spend. We can't spend when actually, if you keep spending, not as much as you were, but at least keep the spend going. Again, it kind of keeps the economy going.
Good. So some really good points there, and I like that, the analogy with Lego. That being able to kind of rebuild, reassemble fairly quickly, because we've got to be dynamic. And I think, none of us wanted a pandemic, but we have learned things from it, and we've learned lessons, business lessons, that will hopefully stand us in good stead for some of the differing challenges that we're facing now, particularly challenges around the economy and around climate change as well. For example, businesses will have to adapt to these things. I quite often, speak about the world as, things are VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, and it's trying to keep pace with that. And we don't always get it right, but we have to try.
Absolutely. And it is challenging, but, ask your colleagues. I mean, one of the best things a CEO can do is actually turn around and say to their colleagues and their team, what can I do for you? Rather than what can you do for me? It's really quite empowering. And actually, it means you then got a team of ideas rather than just you having to carry it all yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And then people are more bought into it as well, bought into the solution of it. Now, very interesting, Aileen, but you're also helping, and another string to your bow is that you're helping businesses in Scotland and the UK expand into the US. How did that come about?
So that's a great story about the power of networking. So I'm an Entrepreneurial Scotland alumni. I'd done a Conscious Leadership Catalyst course, and I'd reached out to Kristen Hurst, who's based in Atlanta, Georgia. She in turn put me in touch with a lady called Alice Sloan, who's based in Boston, who turns out to be a Scot as well. It means I can sniff them out at 20 bases. And we just got talking and comparing notes about what it was like. And I was really struck by the opportunities that were in Boston. It has an impressive talent pool. It's got quite a powerful R&D sector. The density of innovators is from across the disciplines, and it's got a very, very strong culture of giving back, was something that I wanted to be involved in. I was also aware that, Scottish Government are looking to increase the percentage of exports of GDP by 2030, and they were already planning on increasing the international fund. So it just seemed to all fit together. My specialty was the strategy and the commercialization, and Alice actually does business development. So it was a really good combo. And all we wanted to do was just to get that shortest but most effective route to market for companies expanding. And if they can be successful in New England, Massachusetts, in fact, they can be successful anywhere, because Boston, like the Scots, I would say, are a canny bunch. And if you've got something they want, they will absolutely welcome you in. It helps being Scottish.
Yeah, okay. And what are the flights like? Edinburgh and Glasgow, do they connect to Boston?
Yeah, so very easy, very accessible. And if you're successful there, you can then sort of use that as a springboard to other areas, and particularly if you're in tech, obviously renewables, health tech, cyber, and actually luxury Scottish items as well. Platform-based tech companies. It's really important to have a good pipeline of companies here, because the Americans want to see that you have proven yourself. So it's not for the faint-hearted, but it can be done for sure.
Okay, great. So you mentioned that you recently became a Women's Enterprise Scotland ambassador. So talk me through that role, and I think we'll all be pretty clear what the need for it is, but just give us a bit of context there.
Yeah, so essentially I'm a huge advocate for fairness and equity in business, and there are many groups of people that need to be, the doors open to. This particular group of people, I'm going to be engaging more, connecting with those women at startup and growth business phase, and hopefully provide a bit of inspiration that it can be done and how to do it. And in practice, that means advisory services, help with revenue optimization, but it also means being part of focus groups to talk about what are the barriers to entry and what can be done about them, and being part of the solution, not just sitting there, hot air and go, no, isn't it terrible? So I like to get involved, and I like to actually do things. So and there's a planned Women's Business Centre coming out of QMU at some point. So that it was really great for a group of us women to get together and talk about how we can make sure that it's very inclusive. And if you start from an inclusion point of view, you automatically become quite diverse.
Yeah, great. Okay, so we covered quite a lot in a sort of 20-minute live here, which has been good. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, Aileen, to discuss how you can help them or their business, how can they do that?
Sure. So best way is, reach out to me on LinkedIn. you can email me at aileen.boyle@fortro.co, and we can set up a 30-minute call. We'll talk and we'll identify the areas that I can contribute, which are essentially, that board development, internationalization, or scaling your company. And we'll talk about my level of engagement, and we'll make a plan from there. Very easy.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for coming in to see us here in the WeWork office in Edinburgh today.
No, it's been brilliant. Thanks very much.